Hatred, a vibration that permeates our world today, evident in various forms such as prejudice, genocide, and war. It represents an internal state that manifests as intense dislike, aversion, or outright hostility towards someone or something. At its core, hatred constitutes a heightened form of vibrational resistance, a resistance so intense that sometimes one may desire to carry out the obliteration of the perceived source of their discontent. However, what precisely is the source of hatred? The sense of threat is what gives rise to hatred. What does a threat entail? Dealing with something that threatens to undermine something you value is a threat. Anything that has the potential to be dangerous or damaging is a threat. Put otherwise, it's anything that could cause you harm. Anger is the body's defensive reaction to perceived threats. Anger is rapidly transformed into fear when someone feels threatened. Anger and aversion might be understood as a person's desire to maintain their boundaries in order to keep themselves safe. The person makes an effort to push the threat away from them or neutralize it in some way. Hatred is the protective mechanism of the human ego. The questions we must ask ourselves when we find ourselves feeling hate are, what threat does this pose to me? Why is this hurting me? What am I afraid of? For example, an individual may feel resentment towards a colleague at work who consistently outshines them. Upon closer examination, the person may discover that their colleague's success is perceived as a threat to their own professional self-worth and identity. Similarly, a person might develop animosity towards a friend who seems to be forming a close bond with another friend. Delving deeper, they realize that the friendship poses a threat to their feelings of security and connection within the dynamic of their friendship. In another instance, a group of people might harbor disdain for another group due to differing political or religious ideologies. Further introspection could reveal that the root cause of this animosity lies in the beliefs each group holds about the other, considering them as a threat to their own values and their way of life. As our sense of safety increases, the less hatred we feel. Hate has a tendency to spread, which is the issue. The basic process is as follows. We initially identify a danger. We try to push that threat away from us, and in response to it, makes us hateful. Moreover, in a universe governed by the law of attraction, what occurs when we're fixated on that object with a hostile mindset, treating it as a threat? Evidence of their threat to us keeps coming in. It only serves to increase our fear, which in turn fuels our hatred of them. We then find further evidence of their dangers by them just being themselves even when there is no danger at all. Thus the cycle continues. It just goes on, until at some point, we are filled with so much hate that all we can do is strive to completely destroy the other. A greater number of us may more frequently experience being the target of hate. This is especially resonating when we are among those who experienced an upbringing that has made us feel shameful or guilty. It implies that during our early years, the belief that there is something wrong or bad about us was ingrained in us by our caregivers growing up. If someone has the same opinion about us, it will feel like a wonderful vibrational fit. This is how toxic relationships form. This hostility often seems personal to us. We interpret hostility directed against us by others as evidence of our own faults. We become more doubtful, hateful, and distrusting of ourselves as a result of this. Despite this initial feeling, we must realize that hate does not exist because we are bad or worthless in some way. A source of hatred is the belief that we pose a danger to something that the other person values and is consequently emotionally invested in. The question we must therefore ask ourselves is, how am I a threat and a danger to them? For example, we might learn that this person might subconsciously, or even consciously, believe that we pose a threat to their sense of self-worth, their physical safety, their well-being, their relationship, their idealized view of the world, or their beliefs that keep them safe. If If we learn to be compassionate, it will make it much simpler to feel good about someone or something that is against us. It's hard to have empathy for someone who despises you and could be deliberately attempting to ruin your life. But keep in mind that the goal here is to not absolve them of their hatred against you or their actions. You're attempting to improve your own sense of well-being and perspective. Naturally, you begin to see someone as a threat when they begin to hate you. Thus, understanding the suffering that is, in fact, the source of their hatred is one of the finest strategies to break free from this vicious cycle. Where is that younger inner child who is so sure that you pose a definite threat to them? The need for aggressive self-defense diminishes when we recognize that the issue is not inherently about us, but rather that there is something about us that triggers a sense of threat for them. Perhaps with conversation, we may even make them feel less afraid of whatever it is that scares them. When dealing with hatred, whether it's directed from us to them or vice versa, the key is to address the underlying fear and pain by accessing the vulnerability beneath the hatred. So I want you to do 3 things when you come across hate on your path. 1. Question the source of this hate. You must become fully aware of the threat the person believes you pose or that you believe they pose. Question its legitimacy, considering whether it genuinely poses a threat to you or them. It involves a careful examination of the negative attachment to the aspect you perceive as threatened when hatred arises. In essence, the goal is to evaluate the validity of the threat and explore ways to reduce our negative attachment to what we believe is under threat. 2. Use non-reactive conscious techniques. Use non-reactive conscious techniques to rid of any potential threats without hurting the other person. For example, you feel that this other person threatens your sense of worth with their confidence. Instead of moping in the vibration of hate and envy all day, question yourself, how could I lessen that threat to my own self-worth? What work do I need to do to make myself feel deserving of that confidence myself? 3. Curate a safe zone within. Enhance your sense of safety and integrity by elevating your emotional well-being. It's apparent that sometimes you will feel the sense of obligation to safeguard something you fear losing or having diminished by the person expressing hatred toward you or vice versa. Therefore, I encourage you to deliberately cultivate thoughts that bring comfort in relation to the threatening situation. Any positive thoughts or perspective on the current situation that will induce a sense of well-being will effectively reduce the low vibrational feeling of the perceived threat. By engaging in these practices, we can observe a reduction in feelings of hatred. At the root, hatred emerges from a sense of powerlessness over our emotions and the way we feel. Why is this so hard to let go of? Because somehow, along our journey, we were programmed to feel uncomfortable and shameful if we did let go of these beliefs. In essence, hatred stems from a perceived inability to control our emotional well-being. The solution lies in demonstrating to yourself that such powerlessness is not permanent, and the change lies within your determination to strive for the best version of yourself. Redirecting focus or taking actions that enhance our well-being and security in the face of potential loss will invariably result in making you feel better about yourself and your present life. Hatred is a violent and unpleasant emotion, and it will sometimes make you feel impossible to recover as long as the threat we think caused these bad feelings is still there. However, if we shift our focus away from the things making us feel bad and concentrate on things that make us feel good, we realize the empowerment that we can always intentionally change how we feel. This helps us see that we're not just helpless against the world, making us less afraid of endeavors and reducing our tendency to feel hate. I want to assure you that the part of you that feels hatred isn't malicious or evil. It's like a small, vulnerable child feeling overwhelmed by the world and its emotions. This inner child is the one that requires attention. When I mention child, I want to avoid the belief system that a child is less intelligent or less spiritually conscious than an adult. That's not the case with the inner child. It's simply an aspect of you experiencing deep pain, needing your conscious attention and focus. Understand its fears and support it in feeling better about what it's afraid of. The inner child within is filled with fear and responds by attempting to push away whatever scares it. It's crucial for us to feel love and compassion for this vulnerable part of ourselves that feels threatened. By doing so, we establish a sense of safety, calming the hatred within us. It's a natural response to turn to hatred when we feel threatened, so encountering someone entirely free of all hatred is quite uncommon. Concealing and denying this aspect within yourself can be extremely harmful. Repressed hatred has detrimental effects on both your well-being and the broader world. Regardless of being someone who embraces spirituality and values love and positivity, it's crucial to acknowledge and become aware of the hatred within you. Admitting what you dislike is essential for finding resolution instead of convincing yourself it doesn't exist. Conversely, when we don't suppress our hatred but lack awareness to handle it directly, we mistakenly interpret the surge of fight-or-flight energy and hatred as a form of power. In reality, hatred is the antithesis of power, arising when we feel powerless in the face of a threat, leading to reactive behavior. Instead of addressing the internal fears, we attempt to eliminate the perceived threat, engaging in a war against it. This approach is ineffective in a universe governed by the law of attraction, where resisting something only makes it persist. Feeling hatred towards someone is unpleasant, and this negativity extends not only to the person we dislike, but also to ourselves. It's common to assume that the perceived threat is solely responsible for our hatred, but in reality, it's our reaction to what we perceive as a threat. Therefore, hatred isn't someone else's problem, it's our own, deserving of our conscious attention. Even if the person has given us reasons to justify the hatred, the power we possess lies in managing our reaction to them and their actions. The positive aspect is that we're not powerless against our hatred. Hatred serves as a disguise for underlying emotions like pain, hurt, and fear. To overcome hatred, address these emotions consciously and redirect your focus towards things that bring a sense of safety, joy, and integrity. Observe this shift and watch hatred disappear from your life. As always, thank you all for tuning in. I hope you all are taking care of yourselves. Peace, love, and prosperity to all beings of planet Earth.